So in this part of the arrow building series, we're going to be gluing in points and nock bushings. So I'll give you a good basis on the kind of glue that I use, the type of equipment I have to do it, and kind of show you the process that I use to get my points and nock bushings in as square as possible. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is get a hold of some sort of tool to square the ends of your arrow. I have the arrow squaring tool by G5. I know there's a lot of other ones out there. This is just what I came across, and it has worked great for me. So basically, all I'm going to do is put it in there and kind of press down lightly and put in there and just twist it maybe 10 or 15 times. And that will make sure that the ends of the carbon are perfectly square. That way, you know, you're not worrying about any sort of wobble there when you glue in your components. Okay, so here's my setup. I've got a little piece of paper in there just so the shaft slides on my thumb a little bit easier. I'm just pressing down lightly with my thumb and then pushing it in there and just giving it 10 or 15 twists. So I'm just gonna go with 12 and then flip it around, do the other end. Try to do the same amount of twists on every arrow. So there's 12 again. So now that arrow is done, I'm gonna set it aside and go to the next one. Okay, so I've got both ends squared on all the arrows, and now I'm going to start cleaning them. So one thing that most people skimp out on is cleaning the arrows. That's, in my mind, one of the most important things. So I've just got an air hose hooked up with a blower end on it. I'm just gonna blow some air down the tubes of the shafts to get rid of all that loose carbon in there. Kind of look down them, just make sure that there's not a whole lot in there. Of course, there's still going to be some, but I'm just trying to clean out as much as I can. Okay, so the inside of the arrows are pretty clean now. Got most of the dust out, so I'm going to go ahead and use some other things to really deep clean them. So all I use to clean my arrows is some lacquer thinner and some Q-tips. So I'm just cleaning the inside. One thing to watch out for, though, is some resins that some manufacturers use do not hold up to lacquer thinner because it's a solvent. Like Black Eagle resin, I'm pretty sure, does not hold up to solvents. So you can use denatured alcohol. That should be safe for every type of resin or carbon. But I like to use lacquer thinner when I can, just because it's a little bit stronger. So all I'm gonna do is take and dip my Q-tip down in there, just get it, you know, kind of saturated. And then I'll take and put all my arrows on the edge of the table and just start cleaning them. So this Q-tip happens to fit perfectly with the inside diameter of these shafts. These are 204 shafts. And I'm just going to stick it in there at least as far in as the insert's gonna be. Just kind of go back and forth a little bit. It'll come out looking a little bit dirty like that. But you can go ahead and use it for several shafts, depending on how dirty your shafts are to begin with. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And what this is doing is getting rid of all the oils from manufacturing or anything like that and removing some of that dust so the inserts stick a little bit better. So once it gets, I'll go a little bit farther. But once it gets to a certain point of dirtiness, you're going to want to get a new Q-tip. So for this first run, I'm just going to keep on going and do all of them, so the full dozen, and then it'll come out looking pretty dirty at the end. And then I'll go through 2 or 3 times until it stops getting dirty when it comes out. So that's how it looks like after the first run there. I'm just going to grab another one, dip it back in the lacquer, and do the same thing again until it comes out clean. Here's what the Q-tip looks like after the second time going through all of them. Okay, so I'm done with one end. That's what it ended up looking like coming out the last time. Now I'm going to switch and do the other end. Okay, so I've got both ends cleaned on the arrow shaft. Now it's time to clean the components. So right now I'm using Easton HIT inserts, and I have some nock bushings as well. So I always like to clean those before I use them. That just helps, you know, make them stick a little bit better. So I'm going to show you what I use to do that. Okay, so all I use to clean these is some lacquer thinner and Q-tips, just like with the arrows, or you could even use like a paper towel. But first thing I'm gonna do is inspect each component, making sure that nothing's broken, dented, and these are some older components, so actually this one's already been used. It's got some glue residue on it, so I'll set it aside and grab a new one. But other than that, all my components look great, so I'm going to start cleaning them. So I'm just gonna grab a Q-tip, dip it in lacquer thinner, and then just start smearing the components like this, trying to get all the oils and stuff I can off of these, and do that to the inserts and nock bushings. Okay, so I've got all my components cleaned. Now I'm going to sort them by weight. So basically, super simple. Just get yourself like a grain scale or some kind of scale to measure, small amounts. And all I'm gonna do is weigh each component and put them in order from lightest to heaviest. So some components are normally very consistent, so 7.3 grains there. But other components can have a lot of weight tolerance there. So here's 7.1. I'm just gonna keep going through all these, making different weight piles. Oh, there's another 7.3. Just trying to match them with the heavier arrows. So the lighter components will go with heavier arrow and vice versa, trying to make each arrow weigh close to the exact same weight. So I've weighed all the nock bushings. These are 7.3s, those are 7.1s. Now I'm gonna start doing the inserts. Okay, so I was getting a little bit of scale inconsistency there, so I just made two piles, heavy and light. Now I'm going to start weighing the arrows. Okay, so now I've weighed all my arrows and all my components, and so these are the lighter arrows, these are the heavier components, these are the medium weight arrows, medium weight components, and heavy arrows and light components. And now it is time to glue them in. So now I'm gonna show you what you'll need to glue in your components. So for the nock bushings, I'm going to use hot melt, and the hot melt I'm using is Boning brand. Looks like this, it's their blue stick. That's way I can remove my nock bushing. If you like to nock tune, having a nock bushing that is movable really helps. So that's why I use hot melt on the back end. And knocking pliers are very helpful as well if you have any of those. But then all you need is torch, some sort of flame source. Propane works good, but I prefer MAP gas. Only reason I'm not using it is because I'm out. So now I'm gonna show you exactly how to glue in the nock bushings. Okay, so before I start this torch, just make sure that you're gluing the nock bushing into the correct end of the arrow, and make sure that you don't overheat any of your stuff. That's very important. So now I'm going to do an arrow. And they work kind of like pancakes. The first one doesn't always come out great. That's why having some practice arrows is always good if you're building a batch that's important. But I'll start now. Okay, so just grabbing one of these and kind of waving it over the fire, just heating it up a little bit until it just starts to melt that glue. It's like it's not melting yet. Heat it up a little bit more. Just don't want to overheat it. Okay, so I melted the glue. I'm going to grab up the arrow that it's matched up with, reheat that glue a little bit, and stick it in. As I'm sticking it in, I'm twisting it, trying to get that glue evenly spread around there. Okay, now that I've got it on, I'm going to take a rag and wipe off the excess. And then press it down onto the table to make sure that it's fully seated in there. And then I'll set it aside, or set it back where it is so it's still matched up with the other components. Then I'll go ahead and do the rest of the arrows. Okay, so there you go. That is 12 finished nock bushings there. Now I'm going to show you how to glue in the HIT inserts. Okay, so first step, is weighing your arrows again. So because we added glue, the weight's gonna be a little bit different now. So I'm gonna weigh all these arrows again and order them from heaviest to lightest, and then match them up with the inserts that I already weighed. So here's a good thing to watch out for. If you notice, look at the holes on the back of this insert versus on these inserts here. See how it's a different size? That's why I was getting two different weights. So just be mindful that you actually have the same components for all your arrows. Okay, so the only thing that you do differently with HIT inserts is screw in the point that you're going to be using in the end, which for me is just going to be a field point. If you have broadheads, then you'll screw in broadheads to the HIT insert before you glue them in. And then like regular insert outserts, something like that, you don't necessarily have to screw a point in, but if you plan on shooting a broadhead through them, I would suggest putting a broadhead in. That way you can spin test and align that broadhead after you glue them in. So right now for this insert, I've just got a field point, and that's what it's going to look like in the arrow when I'm done. So I've tightened those up so they don't come loose, and I'm just going to get some hot melt and hot melt them right in the end of the arrow, just like I did with the nock bushings. Okay, so I've also gone ahead and screwed field points into my HIT inserts and weighed all of these as a combination here. And then I'm going to match the lightest point with the heaviest arrow and the heaviest point with the lightest arrow, trying to get some consistency weight to weight from arrow to arrow. So this is pretty much the exact same thing as gluing in the bushings. You'll just have to wait a little bit longer to heat it up because there's more mass there. But I'm gonna start the propane, get it working here. Again, knocking pliers helps a lot. Just gonna work on heating this up. Don't want to overheat it though. Just test it every so often, making sure that you got the right temperature. Just trying to barely get that glue to melt on there. So another tip, if you're doing broadheads, you're gonna want to use like 2-part epoxy for this part instead of hot melt, because it gives you a little bit more hang time to be able to spin test those broadheads, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Okay, so I got all the points glued in. They are looking great. Nock bushings in. Next step will be to spine align arrows and get them fletched. So I'll show you how to do that in the next part of the arrow building series. Thanks for watching.